would request कि questions आप crisp रखें, crisp in the sense कि very pointed, so that we can explain, few sentences. And
Okay.
otherwise, external question रखेंगे तो then it requires a lot of effort and time to explain. एक ही बार में सब कुछ explain करना पड़ता है, तो split कर लें. ये questions आप देख लो क्या what are the questions, फिर कल की कमी
Okay.
आज पूरी कर लें.
ओके, नमस्कार दोस्तों, स्वागत है हमारे चैनल थिंक टैंक इंडिया पर। आज हम कल एक चर्चा किए थे वो डायरेक्ट एक्शन डे पर, लेकिन आज खास डायरेक्ट एक्शन डे है। आज शाम को मैं और अनिमित्र आज हमारे साथ जुड़ गए हैं। अनिमित्र और मैं, अनिमित्र खुद ज्वाइन किए थे गोपाल मुखर्जी की घर से, उस प्रोग्राम पे हम लोग शरीक हुए थे। अनिमित्र उस बारे में बोलेंगे। और हमारे साथ आज ललित जी फिर से ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं। हमारे आज का शो का टॉपिक है द ग्रेट कोलकाता फाइल्स, क्योंकि कश्मीर फाइल्स हमने सब देख चुके हैं, लेकिन 1946 की 16 अगस्त जो कैलकाटा फाइल्स हुए थे वो कोई आज डिस्कशन में नहीं लाते, उस बारे में हम बात करेंगे। तो हमारे दो मेहमान ललित मिश्रा जी इंडोलॉजिस्ट और अनिमित्र चक्रवर्ती बंगाल वॉलंटियर्स की जो जनरल सेक्रेटरी वो ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं। आज हमारे 5 गेस्ट अनिमित्र से स्टार्ट करते हैं। अनिमित्र, so what is your opinion about the great Kolkata files? And today you are present at Gopal Mukherjee's residence. So what you discussion with his family and the historians who presented at that meeting?
Well, Vasudha ji, to be very precise, Direct Action Day happens to be a watershed in the Bengal political history. It was at the time, if we go through the books and the anecdotes at this moment, it shall be found that it was inevitable. Direct Action Day was extremely inevitable in the Bengal political situation. Since the 1946 situation didn't come up overnight, it had its beginning in 1937 election, 1937 source is 1933, and then it's 1911 also. So what's the problem like is that in 1937, despite having a comfortable margin, the Congress declined to join the government, and the Krishak Chakrovorty, or led by Fazlul Haq, was somewhat compelled to join the Muslim League. But when the Chakrovorty government was formed, it led to the first beginning of the political persecution in the Indian state of Bengal, the undivided Bengal presidency. Why? From the very beginning, the Islamist parties had thought that it was a time for them to Islamize the entire Bengal. But unfortunately, since on the other side, on the national side, the revolutionary groups are quite prominent, there are the other revolutionary parties as well. There was the emergence of the Hindu Mahasabha at the time. In 1939, Veer Savarkar made a momentous declaration at the Kolkata Hindu Mahasabha conference. Thousands of youths joined Hindu Mahasabha, and there was also the Congress. So from the four walls of the legislature, the fights came to the streets. Now, how can there be fights? The government of 1937 brought 2 bills, 2 extremely controversial bills. One was to snatch the secondary examinations from the Calcutta University. The Calcutta University at the time was being manned by the Hindus, and they tried to establish a separate secondary education board that urged the Hindus extremely. The Hindu Mahasabha leaders, including the global renowned scientist Acharya Prafulla Chandra Rai, staged a seated demonstration for days to hold this issue. And number 2, the government brought an economic bill to snatch, or to put an end to the Zamindara system in the Bengal. And the Zamindara system at the time was with the Hindus. So it was termed that the government was trying to culminate or or what shall I say, or institute an Islamic theology in the entire social scenario. That led to the confrontations in 1937-39. With the use it passed, and with the Nazimuddin ministry and later the Sarawak University as a ministry in 1946, the battle was out to open in the streets. It must be taken into consideration that on 14th of August, in a mammoth meeting at then South Calcutta of Deshopuriya Park, the joint conclave of the Bengal Provincial Congress and the Bengal Provincial Hindu Mahasabha stated very clearly that we are not going to bow to Muslim League's threatening of Diet Action Day. If there is bloodshed, let there be. And this must be taken into consideration as well, that by that time, the Bengal Congress had defied the Delhi's dictates completely. What the Nehru and Gandhi wanted to do in Bengal was completely nullified by the Bengal Congress, since the Bengal Congress at the time was being led by the erstwhile revolutionaries of the Jugantar and the other groups. There was also the presence of a mammoth revolutionary called Bipin Bihari Ganguly of Attanoti Samiti, who was known for his expertise in handling weapons. He was almost termed as a Sabyasachi. He was very powerful to wield two guns at the same time with two fingers, and all that people decided to be on the other side and to go against the Muslim League's dictates. 16th of August, the slogan was Larkan mein meri muh mein pan, larke lenge Pakistan. But by the 17th of August, in the evening, the slogan changed as Aao, larke lo Pakistan. That means the Hindus had started to challenge. Number two, it was a time when the Bengali Hindus, who were termed as informed and incapable for violence, were perceived in the streets with extreme confidence. And the reason is that they were led by the revolutionaries of the Unshan Samiti and Jugantar. Lots of revolutionaries of the Agni Yug, let's say the age of fire, were with the Hindu Mahasabha and the Congress. They trained the Hindus. There were lots of akharas, innumerable akharas. There was the support of the Jugal Kishore Birla and other Marwari business community. And for that reason, as a whole, the Hindus not only defied the Muslim dictate, it must also be remembered that Muslim League was in the government and it was backed by the British administration. So the police, the fire brigade, the health service, all were with Muslims League, but defying everything and brushing aside all governmental interventions, the Hindus started with a valiant response from 16th of August, and by 17th of August, the situation turned completely different.
ललित जी, आप तो हिस्टोरिकल व्यूज की तरफ से बोलना चाहते हैं, आप क्या बोलना चाहते हैं, इसकी पृष्ठभूमि क्या थी?
ओके, जो इसका पृष्ठभूमि है that is slightly different and that is not well written also. So I would like to give some light on this part which is never written in our textbooks. The thing is, we in India had seen, if you talking from the perspective of the history, if you look at this great divide between these two nations, which are called Hindu and Muslim nations, though we Hindu and Muslims are just two groups of two communities, but we were called two nations. And this two nation theory comes from none but Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, who is the founder of Aligarh Muslim University, AMU. So it is he who said in 1988 that if suppose all the British have gone back to England, so who would rule India? Whether these are the Hindus who would rule, or whether the Muslims. He first created the seed of division in India and our textbooks are not highlighting his role, his communal thinking, and rather he is presented as a great academician, a great institutional builder. So that is one fault line. In it's a complete history of Congress part, Indian National Congress of Gandhiji, and even before him, Congress never had developed or understood this communal angle and the cultural conflict between these two groups because of the historical reasons. There are historical reasons, and those reasons always needed to be addressed, but Congress party never addressed it. Rather, it had developed no tool to address it. So that is what emerged is the division of two nations, because Gandhiji or the Nehru, they were doing nothing. They were developing the personal relationship with the some Muslim League leaders. Even one of the founder of the Pakistan, a close associate of Jinnah, he stayed with Nehru at his Allahabad house for 4 years. Mind it, for 4 years, and he is the same person who is considered to be one of the founder members of the divided Pakistan, right? So they had no sense and understanding of the emerging issue, which finally divided India as a nation, one nation. So these the division started with uh, Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan, and then the second person who theoretically and in principle uh, gave relevancy to this division was a poet, Allama Iqbal. So Allama Iqbal is still projected in India as a nationalist poet. Rather, he was very pretty much communal, and his communal side is masked under his literary work. So that is another area. These two are the fault lines. In India, still Iqbal is not criticized. So what happens? The fault line which they created over a long period of 70, 80 years is still continuing in India. And we have in India still Hindu and Muslim stands divided. And that is dividing India. The same fault line is getting stressed if you ever analyze the speeches of Asaduddin Owaisi or the spokespersons of various Muslim groups like Muslim Personal Law Board and other groups, certain Maulanas and Mullahs, they are arguing the same thing which was argued before the partition of India. And this is what we face challenge, because this is where we face challenge because our journalists are not ready. So this issue, this major problem, the problem which divides India is continuing, is still in India. So we have to educate our politicians. In fact, rather we should see, if a politician does not have good understanding of history, he should not be projected to see serious posts, serious positions, responsible positions, because he cannot solve the problem in hand. This is what is happening. The people who are going for Bharat Jodo Yatra, in fact they are arguing the same thing which failed India before 1947. This Bharat Jodo Yatra never addressed. You have never received a statement from Rahul Gandhi recently against the Islam, against this Muslim communalism. When I say Muslim communalism, I do not say what a poor Muslim feels at the village level, but the communalism which is spread to the bottommost level by the Maulanas, Mullahs, and the political leaders like Asaduddin Owaisi. The same thing happened in Bengal in 1946, but before that, there was a preamble in the same year 1946. In Bengal, there were already riots happened in January and February 1946. So nobody had taken a lesson from those riots. It was not at all at one day that certain a mob had come and there was riots. It's wrong. There were a long preparation, and it was engineered by the politicians of the day. Yesterday, I think I also mentioned when Jinnah, Jinnah was once a nationalist politician. In 1925, he gave a speech, a slogan which is still repeated by our people. Even nationalist people repeat what Muhammad Ali Jinnah said in 1925. He said, I am a nationalist at first, nationalist at second, and nationalist at the last. So that is a quite appealing slogan, but he was not. He was a career politician, and we people often go by such slogans, not by the action. So there is a problem in the mass, in the public, in the audience also, who prefer a politician who gives good slogans. So I said that there were riots and good number of people died in Kolkata already in January, February 1946. And when Jinnah gave this call for direct action day in July 1946, it was well known that he's going to do something sinistrous. But still, neither Gandhi nor Nehru nor anybody, and there were people like C. Gopalachari, who was considered once upon a time the new Chanakya, new Kautilya of Indian politics. He was rather arguing the same argument which a Muslim League had raised. So this is how, to this level, the Congress, then Congress was confused, misled, and had no idea what to do. They were only discussing the portfolio, the seat sharing, who would form the government, how they would rule, etc. No worries, no concerns were expressed by the so-called great Congress leaders who are taught to us like great leaders of India, all-time great leaders. They demonstrated no understanding of the situation. So this is how our thoughtless was our leadership, Congress leadership, and how aggressive were the Muslim League leadership. This is what happened. And just one thing more to mention: the Muslim League won 1946 elections in a vast majority. More than 90% of the seats were won by the Muslim League. So Kolkata and the Bengal was a stronghold of Muslim League. Congress was a minority in the parliament. And as Animitra said, Krisak Praja Party was also a minor component. So in that situation, still Congress was not understanding. One leader of Congress from the Kolkata only, I think some Mr. Mazumdar, Kishan Roy Mazumdar or Kishan Ray, I would reconfirm the name. So that day, he rather motivated, encouraged Hindus, particularly or those who were not belonging to the Muslim League, to open their shops. He made a public appeal to people who did not have any kind of weapons to defend them. He appealed them to open the shops, go to the business, join their offices. So such kind of careless and having the no insight to the situation where our political leadership. It is because these mistakes, these errors in judgment, that direct Sunday happened in Bengal, and as a outcome, over 4,000 people were died, and the riots were spread out of Kolkata to Hooghly, Howrah, 24th Pargana, East Bengal, and many places. Lakhs and lakhs of the people got injured. Their house property were burnt. All this happened. All this happened because our politicians were so naive. They had no idea what was happening, and the same thing is continuing. My pain is, as a student of history, being an Indologist, that the same mistake, same error of judgment, same fault lines are still continuing in India. So instead of, I would request our people the think tanks and others, instead of having too much aggression on the tactical things, let us start addressing these open fault lines. We should tap the fault lines, otherwise the same problem will continue in India, as we see during the Navaratri or Ram Navami or the Bajrang Jayanti, Hanuman Jayanti, the same thing recurs. I would again warn, alert that the behind these fault lines, the same group operates. Same group, when I say the mullah, Maulvi, and their understanding behind the curtain with the certain political groups who are spread in Congress, in Asaduddin like leaders who have formed their separate party, in other parties are also there. Entire Samajwadi movement and the left movement has to be admonished, has to be criticized, should be put to the question, clearly asked by our journalists and the think tanks, what is your policies, what is your attitude, your response towards the fault lines which divided India. If you are still continuing, because I tell you, the left who was associated more, attached more with the Russia and the China, they were doing the minority politics. When they were doing the minority politics, and then these communal Muslims leaders were the part of the minority group in their definition. So there was a underhand understanding between them. Still, the left, Samajwadi, and some elements of the Congress has the same configuration. This configuration has never been destroyed, so we should destroy the think tank. It is the responsibility of the think tanks, the Indologists and others, historians particularly, to destroy this configuration which divides India. Otherwise, we will have to face a demand for a small Pakistan again in India. And the common Muslim who is still poor, he will be mobilized by these ambitious separatist politicians who argue the radical Islam. Rahul Gandhi still argues, he never questions the radical Islam. He questions only the other participant, the Hindus, the Mahasabha or whatever, Bajrang Dal or whatever. Let us look at the larger picture. He would always question and preach the peace to the other group. So this division of Indian citizen in two groups comes from these people. It does not come from the nationalist people or the Hindus. So this is a biggest problem which requires a solution. When I say solutions, I do not say anything against any group. The solution is there. Let us accept there is a fault line. The problem persists. Okay, so this is what I have to say.
Animitra, what is your opinion about this?
Well, certainly, I do agree to Misha to a great extent. But at the same time, when we are talking of the Direct Action Day, we must not miss a single point that the entire theoretical concept of the term Muslim state was provided by none except the communists. The Communist Party of India from 1943 had started to support the demand for Pakistan. In 1943 and 44, the Communist Party of India's Dr. Hurinath Chaudhary's 18 nationality assessors put before, or we shall have must say that established the concept of a Muslim state. In 1943, the Communist Party of India's Student Front, AISF, joined hands with the Muslim League student organizations and started to make open discussion forums, public meetings across Bengal. So when we are talking of dividing India and dividing Bengal or partition of Bengal, these points must be taken into not only consideration but with extreme sincerity. Since according to the history, and this information I have received not from any Indian website but from the Dawn newspaper of the Dawn, famous newspaper of Pakistan that was established by
Mhm.
Muhammad Ali Jinnah himself.
Animitra,
And
Animitra, are you audible? Are you audible, Animitra? लगता है फ्रीज हो गया है किसी वजह से.
no, I think there are a connection problem. The frame is not moving.
Connection
Might
problem.
be he might be speaking as well. Can you make a call to him?
Yes, definitely. I'll call. He is joining shortly. He is joining
Okay.
shortly.
Okay. All right.
Again, welcome, Animitra. Continue.
Thank you. Well, Lalitji is here, yeah? He is here.
Yes,
Okay, thank
please,
you.
Misha.
I'm here. I'm here. I'm
Okay,
here. I
thank you.
just
Thank you.
because
Thank
it
you.
was getting recorded, the blank screen, so
Okay,
I got
thank you. Okay, let's continue. Okay. So when in 1946, this last election, according to Dawn, the Communist Party of India sent its two able representatives, Sajjad Zahir and Daniel Latafi, to write the Muslim League's political manifesto for the Punjab election, and the CPI appointed Nikhil Chakravorty to pen the political manifesto of Muslim League in Bengal's election. Now, who are these people? Sajjad Zahir went to Pakistan from 1947. He was beaten thoroughly, and he came back to India once more. And since due to the benediction of Nehru, he was admitted to India once more, and he is regarded as the first Pakistani to get political asylum in India. Daniel Latafi didn't ever go to Pakistan, and he was one of the prominent lawyers in the Shah Banu case. And Nikhil Chakravorty was the editor of the famous magazine called The Mainstream. So you can realize the Communist Party of India left no stone unturned to make the Muslim League victorious. So the ideological basis of that Muslim state or Pakistan was rendered or provided by the communists. But there's also an interesting point. In 1946 Giant Action Day, when in the meeting, the mammoth meeting of Sohrawardy Muslim League that was taking place on August 16, that is on this very day, a large part of the laborers, the workers, came from Garden Ridge with the Communist Party's flags. Jati Basu and Monikondola Sen, two able leaders of the Communist Party of India, were present on that very meeting. And then they went back to their political party offices safely. How? They were escorted by the Ansar Bahini of the army, the cadres, to their party headquarters, Deccan Lane. But when the momentous situation or the time to decide of the formation of West Bengal, two communist MLAs of the Bengal Assembly, Jati Basu and Ratanlal Brahman, opted for the Indian state of West Bengal. So you can very highly realize the ploys of the Communist Party. Once they were with the Muslim League, but seeing the values of the Hindus and their backlash, they realized that it was better for them to be in India. And what's the point I'd like to say, it might be quite controversial, is this, that if we take into account the political situation of the Second World War in the undeveloped India, now as far as Bengal is concerned, and also India is concerned, we have got to admit, however painful it is, Congress was never a political party. It was just a platform where, from the capitalists to the socialists, from the protagonists of the free market economy like Raja Gopalachari, to of the state socialism like Amen Right, it exists side by side. Hindu Mahasabha was full of a galaxy of distinguished leaders. But unfortunately, the Hindu Mahasabha didn't have any such organizational basis in Bengal, and due to its own follies. The Hindu Mahasabha from 1943 to 1945. When Congress was put behind the bars, it was the only political party to represent Hindus in the Bengal political scenario, but they couldn't do something very good. I think they preferred to be the bow to the fiddle of Congress. And so the Hindu Mahasabha was turned into debating society par excellence. At that juncture, to my opinion, the Muslim League turned out to be the only political party with a very fine objective. And look, there was a paramount leader called Muhammad al-Jinnah. He was followed by a large number of generals and the commanders, and the faithfuls were always ready to fight in the streets. There was a large number of Muslim press as well, and they were backed by the British. So you can realize that from the very beginning, the Muslim League was confident to win Calcutta almost by a wink. But unfortunately, what they didn't realize is that sensing the situation from earlier hand, like take for example, in one interview, Gopal Chandra Mukherjee, I've read that Gopal Babu said, Gopal Babu was a nephew of Anukul Chandra Mukherjee, and this person happens to be one of those friends that made the Rhoder Arms robbery in 1940 possible. And Anukul Mukherjee was also a part of the Hindu-German conspiracy to oust the British regime or imperialism from Indian soil in the First World War. Okay, so Gopal Chandra Mukherjee, who was an ardent follower of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, collected the pistols and the grenades from the American soldiers by 1944. He has said in his own interview clearly that I collected all these things. But why? At that time, in 1940 to 44, there was no revolution movement in Bengal. All have ended by that time. So a serious student of history might like to know, so what did he collect for? So he was sensing, and like him, a large number of Hindus were sensing that something sinister is the destiny. And what the sinister is was played on the August 16. Now you may ask me, if the Hindus were prepared, so why were they beaten so heavily on 16th of August? Well, they were prepared, but the governance was with the Muslim League. They were backed by the British governors of Frederick Burroughs, who had said very clearly that without Calcutta, the entire East Pakistan is going to be a rural slum. So to have Calcutta, that means to have the entire of Calcutta. Chakrovorty and his henchmen had decided to blow up the Howrah Bridge even by dynamites. This dangerous plan was unearthed by a person called Horendranath Ghosh, who was the impresario of international famous dancer of Uday Shankar. When Chakrovorty and his henchmen realized that Horen Ghosh has got the plan entirety, he was not only killed, he was chopped off, and different parts of his body were hanged in different parts of the city. And this happened by 16th August in the morning. On 16th of August, according to many, the problem started with the Calcutta meeting, at the meeting of Muslim League, when they were asked to go and fight against the Hindus. But it's a part of the truth. The larger truth is that at 10 in the morning, a huge crowd of the Islamists came to Shambazar, that's the center part of the city, and they attacked the residence of Dr. Gauri Shastri. Gauri Shastri happened to be one of the most ardent scholars of Sanskrit in Bengal at the time. And Gauri Shastri had been with the Hindu Mahasabha. So even what's more, Gauri Shastri, citing the slokas of Kautilya, had made it a point that the Hindus are going to have the worst disaster in the coming days. So for that reason, Gauri Shastri and several Hindu intellectuals were targeted from the morning. That led to a skirmish. The skirmish turned into a battle, and the battle turned into a peace battle by 4 in the evening. By 4 in the evening, the entire city was out of order. The Hindus went, at several areas, the Hindus went to the police stations to plead to the British police officers to save them. The British police officers said in return, in Hindi, जाओ जाके गंदी से सहायता मांगो और जोर से करो और जोर से बोलो जय हिंद जय हिंद. This happened to be the reaction of the British police officers. So by 5 p.m., there was a heavy rain on that very day of 40 minutes in the middle of central part of Calcutta. But after that, what started in central Calcutta was a considerable genocide of the Hindus. But in the southern part of the Calcutta, since the Sikhs for the Gurudwaras and Bengali Hindu clubs joined together along with the Bihari blacksmiths and the Odia merchant and the Odia laborers, so there was a considerable Hindu brigade to confront the Islamists. But it didn't happen in central Calcutta. The central Calcutta was dominated by the middle class Bengalis, be it the Bengalis, the Hindus, the middle class Hindus, be it the Bengalis or the non-Bengalis. So for the entire 16th of August till the noon of 17th of August, there were unprecedented Hindu massacres. But by the 17th of August in the evening at least, there was a sensation, there was a feeling that Hindus were grouping themselves, and what had happened from 17th of August might be termed as the worst kind of civil war that can happen in the history of humanity. There was no police, there was nothing in the streets, and all the groups were engaged in pitched battles. From 19th of August, when Chakrovorty is sitting in the Lal Bajar police station central room, realized that the situation is out of the frying pan and into the fire. What did they realize? What did they anticipate? Has turned down. Now the Hindus are taking the revenge. The Hindus are on the vengeance, and the Hindus have become the winning side, the triumphant side. They asked the governor to call the military. Now, even though the military was posted at different corners of the city, the Hindus by that time turned into a valiant brigade. They got hold of lots of machineries, arms, and armaments, like the traditional weapons, the pistols, the grenades, the revolvers, and everything. And many times they even snatched those armaments from the Islamists, and they used those against them. So, what did happen? Contrary to the expectation of the Muslim League, the Hindus turned to be triumphant. So the 16th of August, that was started by the heinous carnages, heinous atrocities of the Muslim Islamists, was repelled by the Hindu and the Sikh valiants. And from August 16, now you may say that did it end? No, it didn't end. Till September 1947, the riot continued. Now, you must be amazed to know, and many people might be amazed to know, is that when Gandhiji was staying at a makeshift residence called Hyderabad Manzil in Belia Ghata, the residence was attacked by the Hindus. Grenades were dropped or hurled on the Belia Ghata main road, and it got devastated. Gandhiji came running to see the devastation. When they saw Gandhiji, the Hindu crowd started saying, Gandhi, go back to Punjab. Since by that time, the Punjab carnage has started. I'm talking the 7th of September 1947. The intelligence branch of Calcutta had the definite information that plans to kill Gandhiji were being hatched by the Hindu martial groups. And to save Gandhiji, the intelligence branch brought out Gandhiji from his Belia residence at 2:30 in the night and forced him to go to Belur. In those days, the Delhi Express used to go through the main route. This was a code section. The Delhi Express was brought to the Howrah Saura Belur station, and Gandhiji was almost compelled to get into it and to go to Delhi. Okay, so had the intelligence branch hadn't the intelligence done that, Gandhiji could have been killed in Kolkata. And this also brings a new justification or new orientation is that when people talk of Savarkar and Godse and everything, they are not informed of the Calcutta episode. So it means that the entire Hindu nation as a whole was completely disgusted with Gandhiji and his nonsensical principles of non-violence. Now, why? Since Gandhiji couldn't do anything in Noakhali, when following taking the Muslim League, for the people who don't know, let me say that
Yes,
Muslim League trying to,
I would like to know certain things here. Dr. Basudha,
Hmm.
you are there? Yeah, Animitra, just you continue, but I would
Yes,
like to respond.
definitely continue,
yeah,
sir.
okay.
The,
Muslim League avenged, okay, what, please, sir.
okay, one thing, Animitra,
Yes,
one
yes.
minute, one thing. In everything, I can understand the pain and the angst you have, Animitra. That is seems okay. But we should never miss the role of British during this direct
No,
action day and the
I am
and
not
the
missing it. I am not missing it. I am not missing it.
so we should not miss out that, because the British government was known in the entire world for its uh, strength of intelligence system, the very structured intelligence system. The spies, the jasus were spread almost in every village. They are informants. So what happened? Despite the public announcement of direct action day by the Jinnah himself, despite being Sohrawardi in the power in the Bengal, then Bengal, which included both east and west, despite their inclination, despite their preparation, the British government played they closed their eyes. They played as if they were the blind. The government was completely blind and non-responsive to the situation. So that was a muted support in the favor of engineer rights in Kolkata and the other parts of the Bengal. That was happening. Here, why I took time to remind this, because if we must criticize and hold responsible the British government also in it. In every book or the reports or chapters, you will find the discussion happening between these two groups, Hindu and Muslim. What Muslim did to Hindus and Hindus did reverted back to Muslim communal groups. But that was not. See, that was happening in the street, but because behind this, the English people, English strategists were sitting, and now and even then also they were proclaiming themselves as secular. A secular British government was engendering the communal rights in India, and that is what is missing from our discourse most of the times. So I wanted to bring it to your notice. And further about the Gandhiji. Unfortunately, Gandhiji's the political acumen was never critically examined. I tell you on the record that Gandhi rather endorsed the demand for the plebiscite, the what is called the opinion, collection, um, what is called in Hindi, Janmat Sangrah. So he said, once India gets the freedom, is liberated from the British rule, India would go for a plebiscite, for a Janmat Sangrah, for a opinion collection, and by this plebiscite or the Janmat Sangrah, the fate of Indian provinces and the fate of country as a whole was going to be decided. So this source, this demand, he was playing in the hands of Muslim League and the British strategists. That's why he was continuously arguing and endorsing this demand for post-independence Janmat Sangrah. And the the demography was clearly known to Gandhi. Still, he was endorsing it. This shows that this Gandhiji did not have any understanding of the situation, nor he was worried, nor he was concerned with the fate of country. So this is what towards the end of his life Gandhiji was, and similarly the Nehru was. Nehru, as I said earlier, on the eve of this direct action day, Nehru went to meet Jinnah at his home in Mumbai, and that 70-80 minutes meeting, he never cited a question, he never raised a question on Jinnah why he has called direct action and what is the direct action. So that shows Nehru had no political understanding. He had no insight to what was happening and what would be the impact. He was concerned with only the participation, the portfolio sharing, and the other things, the power politics. They had no vision at that moment of time what is going to happen in India. So these things should be known to our people, and people like you, Animitro, you should bring it before the mass in a scholarly manner, so that we should understand who were the engineers or the doctors of this right. If the common people is managed, or it is still today managed, if common people is managed by these political strategies, the common people have no other option but to fight with each other. Always there was a division between our two groups. That is fine, but they were instigated by the political setup behind the curtain. I wanted to
But
address,
sir,
yes.
I would like to know that suppose Nehru had known everything about direct action, what could have happened then? Suppose he
See,
Jinnah, what could have happened?
let me tell.
But
So the major where this Congress, Nehru, and Gandhi defaulted, they never demanded anything from the viceroy, who was close to them. Never demanded anything from the governor of Bengal. What administrative steps should be taken? How the deployment of the army, which was called but meant to watch, there were no instruction to the army to intervene to the mob who was rioting on the street. So they raised no demand. They had no plan of action. Rather, they had no representation was done by Congress, Gandhi, Nehru, and others to viceroy or anywhere. They did no press conference. So they were quite oblivion to the situation, or if it was due to their eyes were focused on the power sharing, who would rule India, who would have larger share in the government. They were, I think, blinded by this greed, unfortunate greed, and that's why India suffered and got divided.
but sir, but
Otherwise, one more thing.
yes,
Otherwise, by the June 16, even Jinnah signed the agreement, agreement with the Congress to be united and to stay with India, with undivided India. So he left for days or the months, 1 month or so, the demand for the Pakistan. So that situation was also not utilized in the favor of the nation by the then Congress leaders. Rather, today the heirs of those Congress leaders, the third and fourth generation today, they put blame on the Hindu Mahasabha or RSS and others. These groups were very marginal groups. They were never strong in as compared to the Muslim League, who was a political party, as well as the radical, as well as the peddler of the radical Islam. So the Muslim League had two portfolios, but Congress had no portfolio. It was just a collection, as you said. It was just a communion of different ideologues, people belonging to different school of thoughts. They were sharing a platform. It was like an outsource of computer science, right? So that was the situation. So we should, also crack down on this gross negligence by the
But sir,
political leader.
I would like to at this juncture, I would like to have a slight difference of opinion to you. Is that
Mhm.
by 1945-46, Nehru had no role in Bengal. I do got the history of documents. Nehru was
No, no.
completely finished. No, no, no,
Nehru
no,
was.
please,
Let me
please,
correct one thing.
please,
No, no,
please,
it will
please,
help
please,
you,
please,
Animitra. It will help. It will help.
no, please,
Nehru,
please, please,
huh, Nehru was the president of Congress party those days. That's why he had a say on the whole situation.
no, no. Nehru had a say on the whole situation, but if you consider on Bengal's political dynamics, if you just consider the dynamics, there was an insurrection on 29th July 1946 in Calcutta, the joint Hindu-Muslim insurrection against the British for the INA trials. By
Hmm.
that time, and it was the 29th July and 16th of August, but that was within the 3 weeks, the situation changed completely to the other side.
Agreed. 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 Agreed to you. Agreed to you.
There
Agreed.
was certainly instigation of the British. I do agree, completely agree. But
Hmm.
Nehru had completely ended by the time, since the entire Bengal population was for IIN and Subhash Chandra Bose. Okay, like many other parts of India. So when we are talking of Gandhiji's and what did happen is that as far as Bengal is concerned, Muslim League avenged the defeat in That Action Day through the Nuwakali coronation. Gandhiji made a trip to Nuwakali and he was completely disastrous. It was a complete disaster. He
That's why I
couldn't
said,
help it.
the Gandhi's role must be critically examined.
Examined.
Unfortunately, even
No,
historians have, let him go scot free. No,
of
no,
course.
no critical examination happened of Gandhi's
Mm.
role, whether he was able to understand, and whether, if he was understanding the situation, whether he was doing the right thing. Similarly, the involvement of the British should also be investigated in the archives. What were the, going inside their offices in communication, the wire between the offices to offices, how how there such a strong intelligence system failed, and no action was
No,
taken, no preparatory
no.
action
Take
was taken. It was not failed,
but
yes, but
that's what. Just take for example the Congress presidents. No Congress. Nehru never did go for a groundbreaking initiatives, and it was only Acharya Kripalani who was the Congress president during Nuwakali. He went to Nuwakali. And when he asked Sir Frederick Burrows, the last British governor, why the Hindu girls or women are being kidnapped in large numbers, the the governor said very lazily that since the Hindu women are more beautiful. So now when Kripalani after this meeting talked to the reporters of Times of India and the Statesman, he stated very clearly that I had a desire to kick at his face for setting such a statement. That means what I would like to say, Lalit Mishra ji, is that the Congress, the highest echelon of Congress by 1946 had no knowledge of what was happening in Punjab and Bengal. It said that the entire echelon of Congress was
yes, we are saying the same.
completely estranged from the ground reality.
Exactly.
Had they been knowledgeable, they could have delved into it. By 1947, the entire Bengal, as far as I do know, was not only divided into civil wars and everything, but the national leadership had hardly any role to play here, like that of Punjab. It was
Yes,
managed. It was
in their
managed.
whole life, the
Hmm.
Gandhi, Nehru, and even the whole Congress, entire Congress leadership, in their look, if I look back into history, they
Hmm.
had never shown the preparedness, understanding, and the willingness to deal with this radicalization of Islamic population by the three powers, by the British, by the left organizations, and by the Muslim League themselves. So these were the three organizations who were using the Islamic population against India. Still till 1935, the Congress, the Muslim League was not able to get the majority in elections. It never had a strong base among the Muslim population. It was since 1937 they started reaching out to the bottom, and with the new aim of Pakistan in their imagination, they filtered to the village level. But Congress had, never studied it, made no strategic plan. It had no strategy. It was completely living in the oblivion, not knowing, not bothering, not concerned. So here,
I do agree to you.
these things
I do
must
agree to
be known
you.
to people. Yeah, this is
Certainly.
what I.
And
Yeah.
and two more things.
Mhm.
Fazlul Haq, the president of the Krishak Puja Party, who was called the Sher Bengal, despite his several shortcomings and everything, despite his communal indications sometimes, he was a person who tried to be with the Congress. But we must keep in this mind, the same Fazlul Haq was picked up by Jinnah, and it was Fazlul Haq who passed the Pakistan resolution in Lahore in 1940. In 1941, the British government had now, when you were trying to say that we must not miss the British government, now I'd like to say something that how there's a sinister was the British government can be understood on this fact. In 1941, there was a census in Bengal. And
Okay.
according to the Hindu press, and according to Modern Review, the globally acclaimed monthly newspaper, it was stated very clearly, by even proved by the Indian statistical reviews, that it was nothing but a concocted census. And the Bengal partition happened on this concocted census. Unfortunately, the National Congress didn't say a single against the census at any point of time. Which means that either the Congress was extremely myopic or tried to make this Bengal as a cannon fodder to Pakistan. Well,
Exactly. You are very correct.
when we do read the famous book of the Guilty Men of India's Petition by Ramana Lohia. Lohia stated there very clearly that when we were talking in Noakhali, then Nehru said to me that, Lohia, do you find any resemblance of this area to the other part of India? If not, why should we bother if we just sham it for the Muslim League? Now, this happens to be the tendency and the attitude of a nationally acclaimed politician like Nehru, who was going to the Prime Minister of India. It is
Yes.
stated by Ramana Lohia. And the most dangerous things have been said. Now, I would like to mention two purposes again. One is Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. Azad had also his plans. But Misha ji, I think you know better than me that Maulana Azad's plan was more dangerous than even Jinnah. It was a plan of balkanizations. He tried to form the groups, Group A, Group B, Group C, that was the Muslim powerful states across undivided India. That could have been more dangerous for the Hindus. And number two, Chaudhry Khaliquz-Zaman, who had written a book called The Pathway to Pakistan. Chaudhry Khaliquz-Zaman happened to be the theoretician of the Muslim League. One of his book, that was a retort to the book of Maulana Abul Kalam Azad's India Wins Freedom. There, Khaliquz-Zaman has written very, very clearly that Congress didn't try to talk to us even. And he also made a single point that endorses, that supports your standpoint also, that in 1937, when the Congress in Bengal didn't enter the government and left it to be ruled by the Muslim League and the Krishak Puja Party, at that time Jinnah was a no. Jinnah was a no man in Indian politics. It was the same Gandhiji who, with his recurrent references of Qaeda-ism, made him the all-powerful man by 1946. In 9 years, the position of Jinnah changed from no to number one position in India. And that had made an extreme impact on the entire Bengal's Muslim populace. And Sohrawardy was nothing but his henchman. If we go through Sohrawardy's record, and Sohrawardy had his disciple, the Mujibur Rahman, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh was his finest disciple. Even if Mujibur Rahman's unfinished autobiography, his unfinished autobiography in Bengali, he has written very clearly that we had fought in Calcutta to get it included in Pakistan. Now, there are also other press reports also, like Mishraji. During the petition, let me listen. During the petition, when the Muslim officials were asked for positions where they would they would want to go, 98% of the Muslim officials of the Bengal government opted for Calcutta, since they were confident of the fact that Calcutta would be included in Pakistan. So there are certain points. There are points of Delhi, there are points of Bengal's politics that must be placed simultaneously, and we must realize what I do. Completely agree to you. The leadership of Congress was extremely myopic. There was no objective, and they had only their personal desires and aspirations and the personal career. And for this reason, the Congress proved to be a silent partner to the devastation of the Hindus in 1947, both in Punjab and Bengal and various other parts of India.
So I'm in agreement with you with the myopic part of the Congress leadership and their unwillingness to understand the situation and even making a strategy to respond to the situation.
Sir, I am intervening one thing. We have a time limit, so please
One second.
precisely.
So I will just make one or two comments and then fine, because already it is around 1 hour discussion, and audience do not have patience to hear any speaker for more than half an hour. So it is 1 hour now. So here, Maulana Azad, you said Maulana Azad had no liking for the Jinnah. Even Jinnah had no liking, rather disliking for the Maulana Azad. At the same time, the Congress had no base in the Muslim dominated or the places. They won only 50, not even 58, 25 or seats in the state assembly in the Muslim population dominated areas. So that had this small meager representation. And at the same time, the Congress was challenging Muslim League. Although if you look at the entire picture at the national level, out of around 1500 somewhat total seats in all the provinces, Congress had some 758 or 760 seats. They won in 1937 election. Muslim League was still a very weak, rather half of the Congress representation. To all over India, they had only 450 or 458, that kind of 50% of the Congress representation was the representation of Muslim League. So that was the equation. Still, Congress had nothing on their hand to stop this communal violence. That means they were not concerned with the fate of India. This should be questioned to the great leaders of the past by students of history or the those who have interest in investigation of what has happened. I tell you, but in the areas like Sindh and the northern western frontier part, where this the great Pakhtun leader, Khudai Khidmatkar, and all those organizations, they were still with the Congress. With the Congress means they were still with the nation. Unless they are, I'm forgetting the name of that Sindhi Muslim leader, till the last breath, who spoke and argued for the India undivided. But the this Muslim League, those communal wing of the Muslim League as a political party managed to get him, murdered before the new lease of the communal violences. If he was not murdered, he was not stabbed to the death, Jinnah would never have got the dominance in that part, the Western Punjab part in Sindh and northern Western frontier part of the then India or the today's Pakistan. So these are the historical mistakes which our politicians have done. And here Sohrawardy needs to be, condemned more. He is the single-handed, the true villain of the this whole massacre. Since the beginning of his career in early age of 20s, he was radical and a communally divided man who rose even after becoming the prime minister. That was the position was called Pradhan Mantri. In those days, provinces had got Pradhan Mantri. So he was the Pradhan Mantri of the Bengal, and he also never let the police intervene. This is said by none but the Maulana Azad himself. He said, we were going to participate in a Congress, Congress, conference, or something, some committee meeting or the summit. He saw the police and the army were waiting to order for intervene. So he asked one policeman, Maulana Azad, see the riot is happening and why you are not going to deal with the or they stop the rioting people. He said, we were called and we have order to watch, not to act. So that is recorded, and he condemned Nehru also in his book. As far as this division of the three groups, this division existed much before. And Azad thought that if the division happened someday, a larger fraction of Muslim League will merge with the Congress. So he had different view. Because he was the president for the Congress for a longest continuity in the history of the Congress since 1938 or 9 till 1946, 7 years. He was the single politician who headed the Congress, Maulana Azad. So he was thinking more in terms of making the Congress a stronger political party, sometimes in at the cost of nation also. But anyway, he was much better than the Jinnah, we would have to agree, because he never went to the Pakistan. He stayed here. He never demanded the division. Rather, in a soft tune, he always argued against the formation of the Pakistan. And you have in Bengal a good Muslim leader, I think Humayun Kabir, I guess. Humayun Kabir was the
Who
person
stayed back?
who, he was not powerful, but he intellectually he could understand. He has written 3 books on this whole issue, the Hindu-Muslim divide and all, the United India, and so many different topics. One must read his books, although he is not very clear, but he keeps hinting, giving you clues what was going wrong in India. He wants to criticize Gandhi at some places, but restrains. He wants to criticize Nehru also, but maintains a restraint. But you will get clarity by reading his book. So one person was there, and he later became, I think, education minister or the law minister of India, and he worked for the revival of the Sanatan culture also. When he was the education minister, he started the translation of the reinterpretation of the Sanskrit text. Although his effort did not yield a good result because he died so very early. I think 2 years. He spent 2 years or 1.5 years as the education minister, and after that only the whole quality of our study material, the history, got down after he was no more. So these are such mixed things. My point of view is, let us have learning from the past mistakes. Do not hide the wrong things done by our great leaders in the past. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you,
let me have my say, please, for a minute. I think Lalit Misha was referring to Allah Baksh, who was murdered, isn't it? You're referring to Allah Baksh.
Not Allah Bucks. There, I think Humayun Kabir. Can you
No, no,
Google? Let
no.
me see. Let me
No,
Google.
no, 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 no. Who? No, the person who was murdered in that part of by in the Pakhtun
Okay,
area.
okay, murder.
Allah
Right,
Baksh.
right. No,
Allah Baksh.
yeah, right, right. Yeah, he could
Yeah,
be. He could be.
yeah. Allah Baksh and Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan also castigated Congress as said that we have been
Allah
thrown to
Bucks.
wolves,
Yeah, yeah. I was not clear on his name. Just vague memory I had. Maybe my
mm,
mistake that I was, you know,
mm,
not remembering his name. But
mm,
his biography shows how strongly he stood for the undivided India.
exactly.
Even and
And it's
also,
and please,
and one
please,
more thing,
please.
yeah, one more thing. It's new, but it is in the interest of India. There was a small, very small fraction of the these what we say Indo Christians, or what we say, those who got converted into Christianity, the British, that small group also stood for the undivided India. Also, it never gets mentioned everywhere. I mean, the converted Europeans who stayed in India, they always stood for the undivided. So there was a small fraction of
Okay, but
these.
well,
Yeah.
Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan also castigated Congress as that we have been thrown to wolves, isn't it? We have been thrown to wolves. He also said, and there are also
Very
certain variations.
small, small reference we find that he was, he had appreciation for the ancient culture of India. He loved
No,
India
according
also. All this thing. Kabuli was story that
no,
Rabindranath Tagore had written, those many things.
according to Ramana Lohia, who had stated
Mhm.
very clearly that he was also present on the last meeting of AICC to decide the partition. He has said it very clearly that Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan openly challenged the Congress leadership by saying that you have thrown us to wolves. Since
Correct. That's correct.
Azad asked him to go and join the Muslim League, and then Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan said that we are being thrown to wolves. And according to Lohia, at the same meeting, sat at the corner of the room, puffed at his endless cigarettes, and not spoke a single one was in opposition. And the person who stood in opposition of the politician was Purushottam the Standard. Okay, that's fine. That's in history. Now, but now let me show just my take from me. It's my take. So what we have been saying that it might be termed as radical to you, but harsh and brutal to many. But what we have been saying that after the division of Bengal, what has happened to the other part of Bengal is that has turned into East Pakistan and Bangladesh. There have been recurrent genocides of the Hindus. Recurrent. Not less than 50 genocides of the Hindus have already taken place in the neighboring state of Bangladesh. Unfortunately,
Yes,
which might be
that's
termed
an
as
unfortunate part of our history. We cannot, ignore it.
unfortunately, it may happen to be very quite undemocratic and brutal for me, to me, for saying that this Islamist mindset can be subdued. It can
Can
never be
be?
subdued. Can be subdued. It can never be subdued unless you
No,
have the
no, no.
power to sub. No, no, no,
Animitro, let us
no,
discuss
no, no,
this
no,
in
no,
another
no,
session. I would
no,
have
no. Okay.
certain things for you.
Yes, we
Yeah,
will
certainly.
discuss it on another session. At already we are 1 hour
But
and 18 minutes.
just a minute. Last but not on this one. Unless the Hindus know how to struggle and win the struggle at the end of the day, Hindus cannot survive. Take it from me. We, the Bengali Hindus, are facing an existential crisis. We have almost extinct in Bangladesh, and we are facing the same crisis now in West Bengal and other parts of the East India. We do know it very well that we are also seeing a repetition of 47 in the next 10 to 15 years. So unless the Hindus get pragmatic, unless the Hindus get
Yes,
the power,
that is a threat most of the
th-
people are thinking. But
there is something
if
problem.
we bring a reform in the mindset of our politicians, still, I see some hope. In another session, I would like to share certain insights, and you would agree.
Certainly. I would like to hear those. I would like to hear this.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
So
Thank you, Animitra.
Thank you.
And
Thank you,
Dr.
Lalit.
Vasudha,
Thank you,
to
Vasudha.
the
Thank you.
audience.
Thank you.
And नमस्कार दर्शक, देखते रहिए थिंक टैंक इंडिया. प्लीज शेयर, सब्सक्राइब, लाइक एंड कमेंट ऑन आवर चैनल.